One of the most impactful books that I have read this year is It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wolyn. And I read the book and then I also read the Blinkist, and I just wanted to clarify one big difference that I saw between the Blinkist and the book. So I just got done dropping my kids off at school. I don't even have the book right in front of me right now to show you, but it's called It Didn't Start With You, and it's about intergenerational trauma. And I wanted to just kind of give you the highlights of what I have found to be pretty mind-blowing about this book at first, and then afterwards some things seem kind of obvious. But basically they're saying that as our ancestors, our parents, grandparents, and beyond experienced trauma, it changed their physical DNA and cells in ways that got passed down to the next generations and that are impacting us today. So, like, one of the studies that they cited talked about how, like, mice, if you they associate a certain smell with being shocked, that then, number one, that mice in that generation become more sensitive to that smell so that they can detect it earlier, but also their kids and grandchildren mice will have an aversion to that smell and have the exact same fear response to that smell, even though they've never actually been exposed to the shock stimulus themselves. So I had not heard of that beforehand. So that's shocking and amazing to me. Like, I didn't know that. So our emotions are being sourced upstream from us. So instead of just looking at, well, where in my childhood trauma is this feeling manifesting? It's like, well, it's not just from there. Like, look farther upstream. And if you think about, like, a river, right? And you're like, why is this thing happening in the river? Well, you got to find the answer, the right amount upstream, in order to be able to actually address the problem, right? So that was one of the studies that was really interesting. Then he cites these examples of people who, like, start exhibiting mental health issues at a certain age and in a certain way that is such a clear echo of something that happened in their past. Like a 19-year-old who wakes up and suddenly has insomnia, like was on a sports team, got a scholarship, was doing really well, till his 19th birthday. He wakes up with insomnia because he's afraid that if he falls asleep, he's never going to wake up again. And that he felt very cold that day that he woke up and felt that way and couldn't go back to sleep. Because of the language that he was using, this psychologist, asked him to, like, ask his family. Turns out a family member had died when they were 19 of cold exposure, like in North Dakota or something. And he didn't, I don't know if he didn't consciously know that. In some of the examples, people maybe, like, had heard the story when they were very young. In other places, they had no idea of it. But you're like, holy shit, like, he was 19 and these things happened and he was cold and and so then there's, like, this conscious element of, oh, now we can consciously understand where the cause of these emotions could be. And then there's the emotional part, which is, now we need to take the time to feel and process the feelings that our ancestors didn't know how or couldn't process, so that we can be free from them. And what I love about this book is that it doesn't make you feel hopeless, like, oh my God, all this stuff happened in my past and there's nothing I can do about it. Like, he also provides very clear ways forward to deal with these feelings. So it feels very empowering to me. It's like, oh, like, down at this part of the river, when I have a feeling, I know how to pull it out of the water and get rid of it. So it's not impacting me so much. Oh, so all I have to do is go farther up the river, pull those feelings out of the water so it doesn't impact me so much. Like, it's not dramatically different than processing the feelings that happen in your own lifetime. It's just telling you, like, hey, go look over here where you haven't been looking before. So there was another example of a woman who was suicidal, and, like, her plans had to do with like, and the visuals and the wording that she had was around, like, she just wanted to be incinerated and to vaporize. And he's like, well, did you have any family members in the Holocaust? And at first she's like, no. Then she's like, yes. So he's worked with a lot of people where they had ancestors or family members who have gone through that. Like, and there's a lot more than I can explain in this, but sort of he gives multiple ways to sort of access how do we get that information, because maybe we're lucky enough to have access to people who know the stories of our family, but they certainly don't know all the stories of what happened, and they don't know all of them going back. And so on the one hand, you could be like, yeah, but how am I ever going to figure that out? Well, the answer is that it's manifesting in how you're feeling now. So you look at how you're feeling now, and that helps you figure out how people were feeling then, or why they might have been feeling that way. So it's so interesting. And I don't know if you've ever heard of family constellations. Like, I've been involved in family constellations for years, which are similar things. They work on ancestral trauma, but it's basically acting out intergenerational trauma and trying to create healing by healing those intergenerational stories. So yeah, so I've kind of been on this thread in the past, but it's just so eye-opening and liberating to be looking at how what I'm feeling today or this month. So for example, earlier this month, I was really feeling like a sense of, I don't have a home. Like, where is my home exactly? And like, my kids are in one place, my house is in another place. I moved out of that house. I have a temporary house, but like, that doesn't feel like home. Like, where is home for me? And I was saying that I felt very untethered. I said that so many times last month. And then I'm reading this book and I'm like, untethered. Like, maybe when my grandparents came over from Spain on boats and probably didn't know where they were going to be living when they got here, and felt like they didn't have a home when they were leaving Spain, and they didn't know where they were going to be home here. Maybe they felt untethered from a boat. I was like, holy fuck. And then I started to look at these like coincidences of timing. And I know, like, childbearing years are not that many, right? So maybe there's 25 years of childbearing at best or something. So there's only a certain number of ages that women can be when they have kids, right? But the age that I was when I separated from my husband is the same age that my mom was when she separated from my dad. And the age that my son was when I separated from my husband is the same age that I was when my parents separated from my dad. I was like 36, I think, or 5. When I separated from my ex, my son was 2.5. Same as when I was a kid, I was 2.5. So that was kind of weird. Then I realized when I had my daughter is the same age that my grandma was when she had my mom. So, I mean, that's not like proof of anything. I understand that. It's anecdotal. But the whole book is talking about the ways that we do tend to act out or, excuse me, or act against his experiences that have happened in our families. So it makes it feel much more approachable, that like, you know what you're looking for. You're not just going out in the woods and being like, how am I supposed to find the medicine that's going to heal me? You're like going out into the woods with a diagram that shows you what fucking, mushroom or spruce leaf that you're looking for. I've been watching the TV show Alone, where they have to survive out in the wilderness. So maybe that's impacting my examples. So anyway, I highly, highly recommend the book. I haven't gotten into the like practices that he has you go through and the exercises to sort of get clearer on your own feelings. And to be honest, I've had a busy, stressful week for various reasons. And I'm like, I don't have the time and the space right now and the emotional resources and the emotional support to delve into that as deeply as I want to. So that's something that I'm going to be making time and space to do with someone, where we have time and emotional support to process those feelings and to take a deeper look. But so far right now, I'm just like shining the light around in the basement or in the woods. And I'm like, oh, wow, there's a lot of stuff there. I wasn't looking over there. There's a lot of stuff there. So that's my summary of the book. I hope it inspires you to look into some of those things and read it.
For the most part, it was pretty right on. But when he gets to the part about paying attention to the words that we use as windows into what past trauma needs to get healed within us, the Blinkist makes it sound like you should be really careful with the words that you use and think about them and make sure they're the right words. Because he says something like pay particular attention to the words. But it's not that you're supposed to be choosing the words that you're saying. They're saying speak naturally. Like, here's a list of questions. Write down what naturally comes out of you, and then pay super close attention to what those words are and what feeling they evoke and what imagery they goes along with them. But he's not saying like be intentional about the words you choose. It's the other way around. Does that make sense? So just wanted to clarify that in case you read the Blinkist and didn't have time to read the book, but that's a pretty big distinction.
That's all I got for you, Phil. Okay, take care. Big hugs. Bye.